Hello everybody and welcome to another Destiny build video. Today we're going to be checking out an Arc Hunter build. This one is incredibly strong, allowing you to clear out insane amount of enemies in literal seconds. And as you can see on the left side of your screen, this is in a mythic mission and it completely annihilates everything. So this build is going to have some key components. Obviously, we're going to be on Arc, so we're going to be jolting a ton of enemies, staying amplified all the time, even getting bolt charge, and also just using a bunch of ability spam in the form of Ascension and Tempest Strike. This is going to allow us to just eradicate enemies like in an insane amount, as you're seeing on the screen right now. So I'm going to show you how to make this so that you can use it in Mythic yourself, maybe the new reclaim activities, or whatever you would like to use it in. So without further ado, let's get started. So to make this build, we're going to start over here with Gifted Conviction. That's going to be our key exotic. Gifted Conviction is going to make it so when we activate Ascension or Tempest Strike, it will throw bouncing explosives at nearby targets that will jolt and damage them. And jolting from any source, nearby targets, will grant you damage reduction. This is going to be a great way of survivability, and it's going to be very key to the entire build. Now for your stats, you're going to want a 70 or higher melee and class stat. The reason why you want them to be about 70 or higher is that will guarantee you about a full charge. Now, for the melee and even class, if you can get them past 100, that's going to be great. For your class, if you can get it to exactly 100, that is perfect. For melee, you're going to want to go farther than 100. If you can get it as close to 200, that is what you want. The reason why you want that is because obviously the higher your melee stat means the higher damage Tempest Strike will deal. So that's going to be why you want your melee stat to be as high as possible. Now after melee and class, the rest is kind of up to you, up to your personal preference. If you want your super more, then put on super. If you want grenades more, put that on. If you're big about health, then put that one on. But we'll actually go into health in just a little bit. And if you want weapons to obviously deal a little more damage, then feel free to put that one on. But class and melee are your two key essentials. Have melee as close to 100 and farther after that up to close to 200 if you can. And have your class be 70 to 100. Now this build does not require any exotic weapon to make it perfect, but there is some that can help synergize and make the build a little better. We're going to start off with the one that I like to use the most, Trinity Ghoul. This is obviously a very great one and synergizes well with any arc damage source and is a great choice to go with. After that, another great choice is going to be Centrifuge. Obviously, this one benefits so much from being amplified. It's also just incredibly strong and is just a lot of fun to use. This is a great one to use as well if you don't want to use a bow through Trinity Ghoul. Now, other than Centrifuge and Trinity Ghoul, Delicate Tomb is also a very good option. Delicate Tomb is going to allow you to jolt more enemies than you would believe thanks to Tempest Cascade, a trait that it has. Obviously, that's going to rely on ionic traces, so that will be even better because we are going to make some ionic traces that's going to help us jolt and everything. So if you want to use Delicate Tomb, that is a phenomenal decision. And last but not least, another great one to pair with this is going to be Lodestar. Lodestar is going to pair with arc damage from any source, and then you'll also be able to long press your reload button to disengage the safety and make it so that the beam will jolt any enemy it hits. This is obviously going to help because we're going to be able to jolt, and we're obviously going to be dealing a ton of arc damage through Ascension and even our grenade, Tempest Strike, and everything of that sort. So this is going to obviously be another phenomenal choice. Now, yet again, you do not need an exotic weapon to make this build be what it is, but Lodestar, Delicate Tomb, Centrifuge, and Trinity Ghoul are going to be the four that works the best with it, in my opinion, and they are really, really strong with this. Up next is going to be our subclass. So here on Arc Strider, for your super, you can go ahead and use whatever you would like, whether it depends on what activity you're doing or whichever is your personal preference, you can go ahead and put that on. For your dodge, you're going to want Gambler's Dodge. This is going to make it so that you get your melee back when you use your dodge, but this is also going to pair with our Aspect Ascension, which is going to allow us to get our melee back using Ascension. We'll get into that later. but you're going to want Gambler's Dodge. Obviously, feel free to use whatever jump you would like. For your melee, you're going to want Combination Blow. This is because Combination Blow is going to give us back our dodge when we get a melee kill. This will also synergize with Tempest Strike, which is our other aspect, which is going to be why we want Combination Blow on instead of Disorienting Blow. And for your grenade, you can actually go ahead and put on whatever grenade you would like. Whichever one you feel the most comfortable with, feel free to put that one on. For your aspects, obviously we're going to go with Tempest Strike. This is going to allow us that when we slide, we can activate our melee ability, as long as it's charged, to unleash a devastating uppercut attack that goes forward in front of you. This will also damage and jolt targets that it hits. Defeating jolted targets will also grant us now stacks of bolt charge, so that is really nice. And we're going to pair that with Ascension. Ascension allows us to be in the air and consume our class ability to summon our arc staff, propelling us forward, which obviously creates a burst of damage below you, amplifies you and nearby allies, and will jolt the enemies. Obviously, Jolt is going to help give us resist. Jolt is also going to give us bolt charge thanks to Tempest Strike, and it's just going to be an overall good thing. And obviously, with Gambler's Dodge on, that's going to refund our melee to use a Tempest Strike. If we get a kill with Tempest Strike, that's going to give us back our dodge to use Ascension. And then we keep creating that process of Ascension, Tempest Strike, Ascension, Tempest Strike, etc. So our fragments up next is going to be Spark of Resistance with our first one here. This is because this is a great one. This one's on every arc build that there ever is, really. And it's just the key essential one. Obviously, we're going to be a little bit in the middle of enemies with Ascension and Tempest Strike, so we might as well get some damage reduction. Next, we're going to go with this one. I know this one's a bit of a weird one, but I personally like Spark of Haste. You can swap this out for one that will generate like ionic traces. For example, Spark of Ions. You can put this one on instead if you would like. Defeating a jolted target or defeating a target with bolt charge will create ionic traces. Obviously, it is perfectly fine to throw this one on. And honestly, it's probably better if you're using Delicate Tomb to put this one on as well. But I'm not using a weapon that obviously is based on ionic traces. And I'm using Spark of Haste because I have a 10 in my health stat. So when I'm sprinting and I walk over an orb, I'm going to get a lot more health since I'll have a plus 50 health stat. Up next, we're going to have Spark of Focus. So this is while you are sprinting, your class ability will regen much faster. This is obviously to help should our Tempest Strike not get a kill, and that means we'll have to wait for Ascension to recharge. We can sprint around and get our class ability back for an Ascension. That's why I kind of like this one. Yet again, this is another one you can swap out if you want to something else. Perhaps you would like this one while amplified all effects are increased in terms of bolt charge. So from all sources, you will get more bolt charge. You can use Spark of Frequency if you want here. And then of course, you can also use something like Spark of Discharge, which is arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace. So up next will be Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage will briefly increase your outgoing melee damage. Yet again, this is just personal preference. Should we get hit with a melee, that will make our melee do more damage. Obviously, you can swap this one out as well. What I would recommend is if you don't want these three right here, Haste, Focus, and Feedback, swap them out for the bottom three right here, which would be Ions, Discharge, and Frequency. That would be my personal recommendation. So it's either these three or these three down here. That would be my recommendation. And last but not least, we're going to use Spark of Shock. Spark of Shock is going to make it so that our arc grenades will jolt targets. This will make any arc grenade in the game jolt enemies on hits, so feel free to use whichever grenade you would like the most, so go ahead and put that on. No build is complete without its armor mods. So we're going to start here with the helmet. We're going to use a harmonic siphon. Since we probably will be using an arc weapon with this build, especially if you're using one of the 4 exotics that I recommend, then obviously this will work for it. Otherwise, feel free to put on the element of the main weapon you are using. Then, for your other 2 slots, feel free to use whatever you would like. If you like special ammo and a heavy ammo finder, go ahead and put those on. Maybe you want a dynamo and an ashes to assets, put that one on. Maybe you want hands-on. It's really up to you. I like super font just to get a little more super damage. So, that is the reason I'm going to be putting on, because we're going to be getting a lot of armor charges. For your gauntlets, go ahead and put on Impact Induction, Focusing Strike, and Heavy-Handed. This is going to make us that when we get powered melee damage, we're going to reduce our grenade and class ability cooldown. And when we get a kill with our powered melee, which also will count for Tempest Strike, this will generate an orb of power. This is just going to be a great way of keeping up some energy regeneration and obviously creating an orb of power for us. For your chest piece, go ahead and put on whatever resistance mods will match the activity you're doing. If you're doing an activity where there's a ton of void damage, obviously put on 2 to 3 void resistances. Or maybe if it's arc, put on some arc ones. For the boots, we're going to start with Elemental Charge. This is going to make so that when we collect Ionic Traces, it will have an escalating chance to give us an armor charge. And I'm going to put on 2 arc weapon surges personally. You can swap one of these out with maybe a better already, just to get a little healing into the build, maybe recuperation for a little more. You can also put on an Innervation if you would like, maybe get a little more grenade. Maybe you want to put something like Absolution to get all ability cooldowns put down a little bit. That is kind of up to you. Personally, I am a fan of having a bunch of bonus weapon damage to my arc weapons for this build. And for our class item, we're going to go with Bomber to start. This is just going to give us back some grenade cooldown when we use our class ability. Obviously, we shouldn't need Outreach because we should be getting it back fully refunded thanks to Gambler's Dodge. So we're going to start with a Bomber, and then we're going to have a Reaper on. Reaper is going to make us that when we get a weapon kill shortly after using our Ascension or just our base dodge, we will spawn an Orb of Power. And then we're going to use Powerful Attraction so that when we use that basic dodge or Ascension, it will automatically collect all nearby Orb of Power. So that ways we can just pull them in, get some health back, which is going to be really, really nice. That's also going to give us our armor charges, which will help us get our arc weapon surge and even our super font if you chose to leave them on. Now, this build is future proof, meaning that it does not need artifact mods to be good. So when the next artifact comes and this one goes, obviously the build will still be just as good. But of course, there are going to be artifact mods that will enhance this build and make it just a little bit better. And the ones that you're going to want on to do that is going to be Elemental Benevolence. This will make us, when we give allies an elemental buff, it will give us class ability energy. We're going to be giving buffs out through Ascension because we can give nearby allies amplified. Next, you're going to want Refresh Threads. This is going to make it so when you pick up an elemental pickup, it's going to give you energy to your least charged ability. Obviously, this will be Ionic Traces for us. So we're going to pair that with Elemental Coalescence, which is defeating targets, has a chance to create an elemental pickup, matching our equipped super. And obviously that's arc, so we're going to create Ionic Traces. We're also going to pair this with Elemental Overdrive, so picking up an elemental pickup or Tangle, but obviously we're going to be picking up Ionic Traces mainly, will grant us increased damage to weapons of the same element. So we're going to be able to up our damage even further thanks to Elemental Overdrive when we pick up Ionic Traces, making our arc weapons, which yet again, if you're using one of the exotics I recommended, will be arc. So we're going to up the damage of them through Elemental Overdrive by picking up Ionic Traces. Now, if you're using Trinity Ghoul, I would recommend putting on Argent Quiver. This is going to make it so when you reload a bow, it will consume a stack of armor charge, granting it increased damage and reload speed for our next 3 shots or until you stow your bow. Now, if you're not using Trinity Ghoul, you can go ahead and change this one over here to Shield Crush. This is going to make it so that when you are amplified, your grenade will recharge faster and deal more damage. Obviously, that's a nice one to have so that we get our grenades back a little more and they will deal a little more damage alongside their jolting. So that's a pretty nice one to have. And obviously, if you're not using a bow, if you're not using Trinity Ghoul, there's no point in having Argent Quiver on. Now, obviously, even if you're using Trinity Ghoul, you can leave Shield Crush on if that's what you prefer. But if you want a little more bonus damage to your weapon, then put on Argent Quiver instead of Shield Crush. So that is going to be how you recreate this build. Like I said in the beginning, it absolutely shreds through everything. I'm doing a mythic mission, and it literally just goes crazy. I mean, it's actually kind of insane how well this build works. You get a ton of damage resistance via Gifted Conviction. You obviously deal a ton of damage and get a lot of kills through your Tempest Strike and Ascension. It is just such a good build. And it was able to take me all the way through and complete the Mythic Mission Quarantine. It is a phenomenal build that you can have for yourself today. So that way you can go and complete a mythic mission of your very own, or maybe a very high difficulty activity in the portal. But with all of that being said, that's the end of the video. Let me know what you think about the build in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you like the video, then why not hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share, all that good jazz. Because it tells me you like these build videos and I enjoy making them. And we have a big catalog, so why not join the family and maybe check out some of the older builds. With all that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, I will see you around the tower.